Alright, we're back with another post-commentary game. Let's check out this starting hand. Pretty good start. Ruddy Duck, Chipping Sparrow, and American Robin. Can't really go wrong with that. Bonus cards. Backyard Birder isn't really great. Omnivore is okay. I think we got King Rail in the starting hand. Probably not going to grab that though. Kind of expensive. We're going second here, and we got Rufus Owl and Peaceful Dove in the tray. Those are pretty good targets for my opponent to grab. And we got the Black-billed Magpie in the tray. That would be a nice counterplay to an opposing Rufus Owl. And Omnivore lines up with that, so we'll see if they take that Rufus Owl. Ruddy Duck is kind of an obvious start. Good card-drawing bird for the wetlands. Chipping Sparrow, one of those awesome egg-laying forest birds, and American Robin can be used to cycle cards in the forest, the excess cards gained off the Ruddy Duck, which makes for a good foundation on a forest engine. And my opponent does take the Rufus Owl, and they took the other card as well. I can't remember what that was. I'm sure we'll see it soon enough. Here comes the Ruddy Duck. Pretty standard start. The Peaceful Dove was the other bird that my opponent took, so they're going to be looking to lay some eggs from their forest. There's the Peaceful Dove for my opponent. Take one off the top, and we're going to grab this Magpie and get it down ahead of our opponent's Rufus Owl. Get a couple bombs off the top of the deck here. And the Magpie also lines up with the round 1 goal, which is pretty nice. Opponent gains food. Gonna throw down this Chipping Sparrow. And then we'll gain food ourselves and generate an egg. Be looking to get the Robin down as well as the Magpie. There's a mountain chickadee for my opponent, so they're building out their forest. They got good makings of a forest engine here. We'll gain our food, hopefully get some nectar off the reroll. Looks like I'm going to spend the worm to reroll the bird feeder to try to maximize my nectar. Having some second thoughts. And I am just going to go with the worm here. No nectar on the reroll, that's disappointing. Don't skip. There we go. Opponent gains food again. Gonna throw down this Robin. Bird feeder is ripe for a reroll here. My opponent had just gained food. They've got one card in hand. They're rocking that Cats of Calico background. Looks kind of jarring. So yeah, there's the Rufus Owl. And we've got the food now to play this Magpie ahead of it. So now when they gain food, we'll get a food from the bird feeder as well. Pretty solid looking forest engine for my opponent. They're hurting for cards though. And there they've drawn their cards. And we'll get the reroll here. Nope, looks like I'm going for cards. I don't have anything I would want to tuck under the Robin here. Willy Wagtail is interesting. Black Swan is interesting. Common Starling is interesting. Black Swan laying eggs on very large wingspan birds at the end of the game. Starling usually makes for a good companion for most forest engines that generate excess food. And my opponent only drew one card here, so they're really stuck. You know, that gives us a window of opportunity to try to crack this game open and pull ahead of them. Opponent draws cards again. Spangled Drongo's in the tray. I like the look of that. And here I decide to discard the wagtail for an extra piece of food. If I were to do this again, I would keep the wagtail to tuck under the robin and not worry about the extra piece of food, but I have such expensive birds in hand that I want to play that I want to try to get as much food as possible. And it's kind of awkward here on the last activation of round 1 because I can't gain nectar. In all honesty, I would probably just draw cards here instead of gaining food if I could redo this. And I do think about tucking the swan for a moment, but then I have second thoughts. I'm looking at the starling, thinking, well, I have all these expensive birds I want to play. I'm not really going to have a lot of excess food laying around to tuck under the starlings. But let that go in order to draw the drongo here. And the more that I talk it out here and think about it, I really should have just have gained cards there. We do win the round goal. Now, if we had just drawn cards, which we're going to do again, the nectar would have been available in the bird feeder, and I could have drawn it here. But we're getting plenty of tucking fodder, looking at more options. More cards to discard to extra food, potentially. Round goal is cavity nest birds with eggs. We only have 1 so far. And I'm really looking at getting this drongo down and really punishing my opponent's forest engine. There's an eastern phoebe for my opponent in their wetlands, so they'll be handing us some extra worms potentially, which is always nice. Extra food is always great when you have a lot of big point birds to play. Looking for the right bird to chuck here. Need plenty of fish. Managed to get some nectar here, thankfully. Brewer's Blackbird could be a good play for us. Does qualify for Omnivore. And I'm really looking at getting the drongo down and lining up the Black Swan with the Great Egret and the Ibis. Opponent drew cards here, handing out a worm. They took a long time thinking about that action. And we'll throw down the drongo here. Holding back a nectar for future plays. So now, whenever they gain a nectar, we'll get a nectar. And if they activate their Rufous Owl, we'll get another food, potentially nectar from the magpie. And another worm from our opponent here. As they draw more cards, digging for solutions. I'm going to gain some more food. Trying to stockpile the resources needed for these big point plays here. Looks like I'm having second thoughts, thinking about the blackbird. Getting that down to lay some eggs. But I am going to gain some food here. And I will discard a card for another piece of food. And I decide to let the blackbird go. It does qualify for Omnivore, but I don't suspect I'm going to be taking the lay egg action that often this game. Cormorant is more tucking fodder. And we get another egg on our cavity nest. Not that it matters here, because it's cavity nest birds with eggs. And my opponent finally gains some food here. We pick up a nectar. And it looks like either The Rufous Owl didn't have a valid target, although I believe the City's Warbler qualifies and the Honey Eater qualifies. It looks like they just skipped their Rufous Owl. So the Magpie is acting as a pretty good deterrent for my opponent's point scoring. Cycle the Cormorant. And there we get another PAB bird, the Great Blue Heron. So now we've got an even more monstrous bomb play coming up here. Opponent lays eggs. Lining up a bird play. I need to lay some eggs myself here in order to make my own gigantic play. There's a crossbill from my opponent. Here comes the egret. Great Blue Heron. And ending with the ibis. And leaving one egg on the Magpie for the wrong goal. Which is why it was important to take the lay egg action and not just run my forest to gain one egg off the Chipping Sparrow. And we come in second on this round goal. Not much we could do about that. Nothing amazing in the tray for my opponent to grab. It's always a good feeling. Now the round 3 goal is food cost of played birds. Our triple play there helps out a ton for that. And we stand to fill out columns 2 and 3 for the round 4 goal. And we get a free wheat from our opponent. And a nectar. It's always great. And we get to trigger off the Magpie here, get another die of food. So my opponent finally decided to activate their Rufous Owl. I think not activating it was hurting them more than it was me, because I haven't really had a problem with food here. I think they finally realized it. And now we're going to draw some more cards here, see what more birds we can play. Hooded Warbler's a good bomb. Pick up a lucky cash on the ibis. Some interesting plays here, nothing too amazing. Not a big fan of the Astrapia. Gonna let that go. Don't like giving eggs to my opponent here in Oceania. Some more decent omnivore targets in the redback shrike and the hummingbird. There's a belted kingfisher for my opponent. So that's probably a bonus card play. There's not really much use in getting one fish off my next potential wetland play. It's a 2 food cost bird toward the round goal. Gonna gain some food here, pick up some nectar. And I'm gonna let this hummingbird go, even though it's going to be 6 points for 1 food. Well, it looks like I am gonna skip the robin here. So I'm thinking about playing the hummingbird, but no, ultimately I decide to tuck it. I've got more valuable point plays here coming up. And I just don't see myself playing that, what will be a net 5-point play minimum. Or maximum, rather. There's a prairie chicken, good bonus card bird for my opponent. So we're using the ferruginous hawk as a nectar delivery system into the grasslands here. Helping to pad out the food costs of played birds. Then we have the redback shrike on deck to not only pick up +2 points from omnivore, but to add +3 to the food cost of played birds. And the ferruginous hawk also picks up an extra egg from the Black Swan. Another free worm. I'll take it. Opponent draws more cards. Looking to gain some more food here. There's that nectar in the tray yet. Gotta leave it there. Getting another egg. Could play the Black Swan here. Another free worm. So my opponent is looking to flood me out here, hoping I can't make use of all this extra food. And this is kind of where it would have been nice to have the common starling as we approach the end of round 3. Couldn't really foresee my opponent handing out a bunch of food though with their crossbill and their Phoebe that weren't even on the board yet. Spotted Owl is looking pretty good in the tray here. Good bonus card bird. Two activations left in the round. Looks like I'm going to work on securing more food for future plays. Take the nectar while it's available. Debating on the reroll here, I think. Taking the Spotted Owl. Hooded Crow for my opponent, so I don't plan on running my grasslands too much. I don't have any activations in my grasslands yet, so they currently stand to gain 0 tucks on the Crow. I'm going to play the Shrike, using all my nectar on the last activation of the round here. Winning the round goal and further cementing our position for the grassland nectar points. Plenty of food on deck. No tucks on the Crow for my opponent. And I'm going to go fishing for nectar here and whiff horribly on that. Gonna skip the Robin because I want to play all these cards. So I am gonna have to take a lay egg action here. Thankfully, with column 4 of the grasslands, we can convert excess food into more eggs. And now that starling is really starting to look pretty good. More free food. A lot of free nectar. Gladly take that. And this could be a nectar, and it is. And here I'm going to lay some eggs in order to play my remaining birds. Plenty of extra food to get rid of. Spread my eggs around in case I see omnivore, or Oologist rather. I have Omnivore Expert. Now I could steal this worm from my opponent, but they're going to be able to snatch a nectar out of the tray. So I decided to skip it. I don't want to give them extra fuel for their endgame here. And my opponent has 2 nectar and 1 worm, so if I gave them that option to grab that 3rd nectar here, they could play a bird with all 3 nectar and work on securing nectar points. So there they did gain food. So they wanted that nectar. That grabs me a nectar. And did they skip their Rufus Owl again? Looks like they may have. Trying to figure out how to distribute this nectar in order to secure the points. Opponent's got 2 nectar in the forest. They could drop a 3-food bird into column 5. So that would give them the nectar points in the forest. The 5 points, that is. They have 0 in the grasslands and 2 in the wetlands. So we're sitting really good there. So it could stand to reason that we could afford to spend all our nectar into the forest to try to win that as well. And we're going to throw it on the owl with nectar. And we whiff on our bonus cards on the owl here. Very disappointing. That always feels really bad at the end of the game like this. Makes you start questioning whether you're going to win or not. There's really no way to salvage this. Just taking Visionary Leader. 2 activations left in the game. I want to get this Warbler down and my Swan down. It's too bad the Hooded Warbler wasn't the Woodcock or something like that that could go into the grasslands. We could complete another column for the wrong goal. Kind of drawing a blank on the names of my birds here. There's Atlantic Puffin for my opponent. That's scary. So they are currently tying the wetland nectar points. So I'm going to use my last nectar to hopefully secure the lead. Currently winning all 3 nectar categories. And the Hooded Warbler is only going to be 5 net points once played into column 5 of the forest. I actually stand to gain 1 more point potentially from running my grasslands and getting the cash off the hawk. And also assuming that my opponent keeps that worm in their supply to be stolen from my Shrike. Opponent lays eggs. And I think about the Warbler for a moment, and I start to do the math. And I think to myself that I have the potential to gain 1 more point by running my grasslands here as opposed to playing my Warbler. But what I don't realize is that I'm giving my opponent the option to tuck cards on their Hooded Crow. So running my grasslands will give them 1 more point off their Crow here, which makes it a wash between the Warbler and the running the grasslands engine. I do decide to go for the eggs here. Making sure I keep my nests open for the Swan here. I will steal the worm from my opponent. They do get the reroll and the potential to grab a nectar here. And they do grab the nectar, and I do get the cash off the hawk. We tie on the wrong goal. Here comes the Swan with its 5 eggs. Nice big play there at the end. Win the forest nectar. Win the grassland nectar. And we get the clean sweep, 15 nectar points. Alright, if you like that big bomb action, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. And let's see how this wound up. Ooh, my opponent did really well on bonus cards. That's scary. It's neck and neck. Still even. Pull ahead a little bit on tucks. And those 15 nectar points are going to bring it home. 110 to 96. Good game to my opponent. Let's check out the board here. 8-point Onmore, my whiffed visionary leader. And my opponent didn't play a bird here, so they had no cards in hand, so I think I was sweating over that for no reason. Behaviorist, ecologist, and ethologist, they did really well on scoring on those awkward bonus cards. Alright, thanks for watching, everybody.